Welcome to the happy hour, everybody, right here, Sirius XM Fly. I'm HB, and you know how much I love food, how much I love cocktailing, and how much I just love sharing information and making sure you guys are properly informed. And with all that being said, I have the author here of this book, Cousins, Maine Lobster. I'm excited to talk about lobster. I'm excited to talk about this book and the food truck industry. The one and only Jim Tselikis is here. Hey. Welcome him to the show. Woo-hoo-hoo.
All right.
Jim, what's up? Thank you for coming through to the happy hour.
Thank you. Sounds like we have a lot in common, liking the food, the booze. I'm trying to figure out where the vodka is, but maybe later.
I do have some stuff in my locker. Okay. I didn't want to bring it out because I don't like to offend people right away and just like, hey, let's get drunk. But I do know now on a break we're going to go get a bottle so we can enjoy it. Jim, thank you so much for coming through to do this show. First and foremost, how did you get involved with the wide world of lobster?
Yeah, I mean, my cousin Saban and I are from Maine, born and raised.
Nice.
So our folks, my parents are still there, my sister's still there. But when you grow up there, like it's a very small town. It's huge in Maine. That's what it is. It's tourism and it's the lobster industry. And so it was around us, always growing up. Our backyard barbecues every holiday, every weekend, all the summer times was steaming pots of lobster. Our family, our friends, our cousins, our mothers drinking way too much Chardonnay, and us eating steamed lobster and lobster rolls, and that's what it was all about.
The industry with lobster, isn't it competitive, or is it very competitive? Like, how were you able to get in?
Yeah, I mean, it is a very competitive industry. All of the lobstermen and women back home are privately owned businesses. The wait time now to get a license is almost upwards of 15 years. Because there's only so many licenses to go around. So that is competitive in and of itself to become a lobsterman. And then on our end, where the customer is at the retail side, it's competitive to make sure that you secure the right product, that supply chain, and that you have that, supply security to provide for your customers.
So after you got all of that, then you decided to do a food truck. Why not a restaurant?
Honestly, it was, I think because we had too many martinis at night. I'm not sure why we chose. The idea came in 2011. My cousin Saban and I were sitting in L.A. on Sunset Boulevard, and we had a lot of drinks, and we thought we had a good idea, and that was to bring the Maine lobster we grew up with and the story of our childhood and that authenticity of Maine to areas of the country where lobster didn't exist, where the quality didn't exist, and make it an affordable luxury. So the reason we started with a food truck is because at the time we had put away some money for savings, and this was the lowest cost kind of investment to get in. And we also thought that the truck would allow us to go to the market and see, do you like it in your neighborhood and area of LA, or does it work here, does it work there, or does it not? And so it worked as a billboard to kind of market our brand.
Jim, without digging too deep into your own personal business, just for the audience that's listening, the Happy Hour crew and the Fly family, if you have this idea to start a business, you said you put some money away. Yep. How much would you say is reasonable? $10,000, $20,000? Like, if you could just give an estimate.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a good question. I think Saban and I each put in just about $20,000 of our own money, and that was in 2011. But honestly, I think that, that was to go to the build and the down payment for the truck, which was expensive. I think you can start businesses with a lot less. You hear people, with $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 that get in based on the type of industry or product that it is. But honestly, I think the biggest things for us is it's the hard work, it's the finding ways when there doesn't appear to be a way or an option, and going after all resources. And eventually, as many people will tell you no, or banks will tell you no, or someone will tell you it shouldn't be a good idea, it'll go your way if it's really a real passion.
Man, thanks for that info. Jim is here. We're hanging out in the happy hour talking lobster. We're going to get a bottle. And more happy hour up next right here on Fly. It's the happy hour right here, Sirius XM Fly. I'm HB, hanging out with Jim Tselikis, author, owner of Cousins, Maine Lobster. And the subtitle I want to just point out is how one food truck became a multi-million-dollar business. And not only do we have the opportunity tonight in the happy hour to talk about food, which I love, which Jim loves, but also talk about the business side of it. Because for me personally, I love food like you do. I'm a home cook. I love cooking for my family, cooking for my friends. friends growing up like you did, just in a house with people that love food and drink, and you get these ideas sometimes, well, maybe I can start a catering industry or a catering business, or maybe I could open up my own little restaurant. And then with the booming business of food trucks, that idea has popped in, and you talked about the business side of it, and getting the money together, putting it down, having a food truck built. What are some of the other obstacles, before we get into the profit and the good part?
Sure.
What are some of the other obstacles that people may run into trying to start their own business?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing, when you have an idea or a thought, the biggest thing that happens to us is people will come up to the truck in any of our cities and say, oh my God, I had this exact idea, or I had, I was going to do this business, or I was going to do that. The biggest difference between them and us is that they didn't. But really, it's that simple. We took the plunge, we took the leap, and a lot of people are a little hesitant to do so. They have the security of a job, but they didn't want to leave, or they're not sure if it's going to work out. But if you're passionate about something, if you want to make it work, if it is your dream and it's where you want to put all your work behind, then you at some point need to take the leap. So that's the first thing, obviously, to go all in, be in an uncomfortable space, and then you won't fail, because that's going to be the only thing you rely on for a paycheck and to make your way. Some of the other lessons, for us along the way is very early on, we said to each other, hey, we need to have humility, because we can't have an ego, we can't have we're not experts at everything, and we don't know everything. When you start your own business, there's so many things that come your way that you never had to think about before. For us, whether it's payroll or insurances or banking or hiring staff or management or getting the food out the window or customer service, we don't know it all. So we found advisors and consultants and friends and family that knew all of those things. And then we would just listen and ask a million questions so that we could become experts eventually. But it was that idea of not having humility, having humility, so that we could really get a well-rounded business and learn what we were doing. So that's one big thing for us that has always been a key piece. And then preparation. We always say if you're prepared, you've got nothing to worry about. And so whether it was when we went on Shark Tank, or whether it's when we launched the first truck or the second truck, or when we started the franchising business, we tried to be overly prepared so that anything that came our way, we'd at least be able to kind of handle and understand how to work with them.
Now, I know it's you and your cousin, but whose idea was it to go on Shark Tank? Because I think that's another crazy idea, because the rejection is a little bit different in front of millions of people. If a banker tells you no, you're like, screw him. He doesn't know what he's talking about anyway. He sucks and he hates his job.
That's right.
But to go on Shark Tank in front of millions.
I love HB.
Yes, in front of millions. Thank you. Whose idea was this?
Well, let's be very clear. The idea of the business was mine, not Sabin. So put that down in stone. But the idea of Shark Tank actually was you do open casting for Shark Tank, like you do a lot of those shows. But they actually reach out to a couple groups each year too, 20 or 40 groups. And they actually reached out to us the day before we opened. We had gotten some press on Urban Daddy, and they actually reached out via email, and so the conversation started that way. And we actually had about 2 months of business at the time, so we're very, in our infancy. So we actually said no twice to going on Shark Tank. But
wait, okay, before you tell me why you said no, not just once, but twice. All right, we're going to get into some music. I want you to answer that, Jim, when we come back. All right, it's the happy hour right here, Sirius XM Fly. It's the happy hour right here, Sirius XM Fly. I'm HB, hanging out with Jim. He's just breaking it all down. Cousins Maine Lobster is the book. I want you guys to go out and get this book, because a lot of you always hit me. Tell me that you love food. Tell me that you want to open up your own business. He breaks down it all, and not only does he do it in the book, but he's talking to us right now about how to get these things done, some of the pitfalls to look out for, and why he was able to say no to Shark Tank, not once, but twice. Jim, tell me why you said no twice.
Yeah, I mean, it seems pretty crazy looking back on it, but it was that we had 2.5 months worth of business, and exactly what you said. There are a lot of people that will go on that show with not enough history to support a valuation, or where they didn't know all the answers to the questions because they didn't have enough history. We also didn't really know what we wanted to become at the time. Did we want to go nationwide? Did we want to just have our small little thing in Southern California? So we said no twice, and on the second time, we actually got a call from their producer and said, listen, this isn't a good decision. You guys got to be smart about this. And it convinced us enough to say, yeah, we'd be missing the boat here. So, a couple months later, we were shooting the show. It aired in October of 2012. and in front of 9 million people, like you said. So yeah, it was, and that was the kind of platform for liftoff ever since.
So both you and your cousin quit your jobs. You had no B plan. This was everything went into this.
I had no HB plan.
No HB plan. Yeah, I like how you did that, Jeff.
I had no plan. I mean, I was living in Boston, working a medical device job. I left all that security, quit my job, left my friends, my family, flew across the country to LA, and we started literally with one food truck. What we did know was that truck, for those first few months open, was having 60 to 80 person lines. People were demanding more trucks, get restaurants. There was this huge demand and overwhelming support for the business and the product. So we knew there was upside. We knew there was a way to scale. At the time, we didn't know how. Would that be with trucks, with restaurants? But that developed with time. We just knew that we had to go all in to focus on it to make it a success.
How did you determine pricing? And I'm asking you just because people listening right now, because I think it's kind of tough when you cook or you like food, any kind of business that you want to be in. It's kind of tough to put a price on it. So you have this food truck and then you have lobster. Automatically you think this is going to cost a lot of money. Are people willing to pay, let's say, $15 for a lobster roll? How did you decide that?
Well, it's a great question. And when we started, the price of lobster to us was, certainly lower in 2012 than it is now. It's been at exponential highs. And we actually went in at a lower price because there was one competitor out there, didn't have the same quality product, but they had been there for a couple of years. So we wanted everyone to try our food, have the masses eat our food, and then we know that they would love the brand, but ultimately they'd love the food, and they would never go back to others. That was our thought. And it really worked. So people got to compare it side by side and say, hey, this is the best. And slowly over time, we incrementally went up. The one thing I would say is that, never to degrade your product. Lobster is a high-end delicacy item. It may not be for everybody, but you can't sell a lobster roll for $8. We sell them for about $16.50 on our trucks. But that's what it's worth. And that's the reality of the product. We know it's not for everybody, but we also know that when you treat yourself or when you're in the mood for the best, this is it. It's just like a filet mignon. When you go somewhere, you're going to spend some money for it. So, and the other piece is that we fight is that psychology of a food truck, right? You're not sitting at a restaurant. You're not getting service per se at a table. It's more of a grab and go. It's still the best product in the world. But it's a different kind of perception for the customer. So we have to educate them and tell them where the product's coming from, how we get it from Maine, and hopefully that helps them with their takeaway. I
love it. Well, the moment of truth is up next because guess what? He bought lobster rolls. Yay! Jim is here hanging out in the happy hour. I'm going to try it out. I'll be back. It's the happy hour right here, Sirius XM Fly. I'm HB, hanging out with Jim, talking lobster, his book, Cousins, Maine Lobster. I want you guys to get it, especially for everybody that constantly hits me up about opening up their own businesses, not sure. And I think what you're saying, that the tactics that you use can apply to everything. It doesn't necessarily have to be the food industry, but photography, music, whatever. You need a partner. You need someone you can trust. You need that willpower. You almost don't need a B plan. You got to kind of go in it all in, Jim. And I think that's what you constantly keep driving home. And you have to have good product. Like, I think sometimes people get comfortable once things become successful and they sort of start slacking off. And as a consumer, we know the difference. We can taste the difference. We remember when we first had it, and then 2 years later, you're like, did they fire their chef? Right. Something is different here. It's not the same thing. So I think those points that you're driving home. What I wanted to ask you, where are your lobster trucks though? Because I'm about to take a bite into this lobster. I live in New Jersey, but I know you're talking about
I
LA.
got news for you. Yeah. I got a real
Talk
good
to
news
me about this while I take my bite.
Go for it. So we franchise our business. So we have 30.
Look at this piece of lobster. Can we just say there's no cheapness going on in here? Look at this, everybody.
We're never gonna get through this.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, we're in 32 trucks in 15 cities, and then we have 8 restaurants opening in the next few months because we franchise the business to get across the country, and so that the teams are vested. The franchisees are vested in the business, living, breathing, and dying Cousins Maine Lobster. On that note, since you're from New Jersey, this weekend we have our grand opening of our first truck in it's the Northern Jersey Freehold area. So we'll be going from there down to the shore and occasionally making it into the city for events.
I am not far at all from Freehold, New Jersey. Freehold stand up, Jersey stand up. You guys support Cousins Maine Lobster, and the fact that people, your friend, now it's restaurants as well, not just the food truck.
Yeah, exactly. So we started by franchising the trucks because that's what we knew. That's what we did. You know, we did 4 corporate ones in LA, and those grew very quickly into other cities. But now, you know, we've got, like I said, we've got 8 restaurants that will be opening in the next 4 to 5 months here. We just opened in Taiwan, across seas, about 3 or 4 months ago.
Wow.
So we are, that'll be our first, that was our first international. Thank you. But that's what it is. You know, restaurants work better in some markets because they're not as food truck friendly. They don't have the nice weather all year round that LA does. And they're different type of buyers, you know. Some buyers want to buy multi-unit restaurants, and you can't maybe do that in certain cities with trucks. So we kind of have 2 models now.
Now, you guys know how much I love lobster. You know how much I love seafood, period, because they follow me on Instagram. This is really good. And I could tell that it's good because I didn't even have to, like, take it with bread. I always try fish first fresh, just taking a piece and not having no covers, so to speak. This is so good, and it's so fresh.
Awesome.
I'm happy for you. Please, anytime you want to, come back. Let's talk about food. Let's talk about
businesses. We're going out tonight. We're going out drinking. We're taking happy hour into the dinner time.
Taking happy hour on the road. Give out your social media and for Cousins Maine Lobster.
Cool, thank you. So for Facebook, it's Cousins Maine Lobster. For Instagram and Twitter, it is CM Lobster. Anything you can do to follow and support the business, we appreciate it. This book launches on April 17th in bookstores all around the country and obviously online. So go out and grab it and look for a truck or a restaurant near you.
Oh, no, you got my support 100%. No, you'll definitely, and I'll start tagging you on Instagram every time I make lobster at home for my family and friends. I'll be like, shout out to Cousins Maine Lobster. All right, thank you so much, Jim.